as we go to the chitas of today. Today, we're gonna, as every year, we do Parsha, almost every year, we do Parsha Shmini twice. We're gonna do Parsha Shmini twice. We're holding right now on today is Tuesday, so we're holding the third reading in the portion of Parsha Shmini. We're holding on chapter 9, verse number 24. So we're holding in the middle of the story of Aaron's two sons. And the fire came out before God, and it ate it ate the offering, all the fats upon the altar. And the people saw and they sang praises. And they fell on their faces. They saw how the Eibishter God responded to accept the carbon. Vayerenu, Rashi says, as Unclish translated. There's a lot of different ways to translate the word Vayerenu, and Unclish translated that they praised. Chapter 10, verse number 1. Yiko ben Aaron, Nadav avi Yishmachte. And Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avi, each took a pan. Vayitum be'em eish, and they put upon it fire. Vayisimu lekteris, and they put upon it keteris, on incense. Vayikruvu lefnei Hashem, Vayikrivnu Hashem, they brought it before God. Eish zara, a foreign fire. Asher leitziva is some which God, which you would never commanded to do. Verse number 2, Vateitz mifnei Hashem, and a fire came out from before God. Vateichaloisam, and it ate them. Vayamusu mifnei Hashem, and they died before God. Amar Ablezer, Rashi says, Ablezer says, the Gemara says, the sons of the Aaron died only because they decided matters in halacha that they weren't allowed. There's many reasons. It's not exactly clear what happened over here. There's a lot of interpretations. They decided to offer an incense in the presence of the teacher Moshe. They should have asked Moshe Rabbeinu if they should do this. Moshe Rabbeinu was there. Their uncle was there. They could have asked a shaila. They could have asked a question. Rabbi Shmuel says they died because they entered the sanctuary after drinking wine. And how do we know that? Where is it brought down in the pasuk that they drank wine? You may know this because after their death, God warns those remaining. He tells Aaron that they should not drink wine. Drinking wine. About this, there are parable of a king whose household members are stated in the Medrash Rabbah. So there's many midrashim on this story of Aaron, of the two sons of Aaron. Moshe said right away to Aaron, this is what God spoke. I will be sanctified through the nearest to me. And I will give honor before the people. Aaron, and Aaron was silent. Rashi says over here, Moshe Rabbeinu consoled his brother to tell him how great his sons were. That the Eibishter said that he's going to sanctify himself through something. So Rashi says, Heichen Dibur, where did God speak to Moshe Rabbeinu about this? There, it says, it says that I'm going to reveal myself, I'm going to make known myself to the Jewish people, and I will sanctify to those that give me honor. So do not read b'chvaydi, don't read ela b'michvaydi, those who honor, those my honor, through my honors ones. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Aaron, Aaron, my brother, I was aware that this house will be sanctified by the death of those intimate with God. But I assumed it will be either through me or through you. I see now that they are even greater than me and you. So they sanctified themselves. They sanctified themselves to come close to God. The concept of Mesira, the true concept of Kedusha. Klois HaNefesh. They had the kalayis and nefesh, their souls expired. Vayidam Aaron, Rashi says Adam was silent. He received a reward for his silence. What reward did he receive? That he received a direct communication. God tells him the next mitzvah. Shenem alavad pashis shusiyayim. The next, it's brought down in the Medrash, because in the prohibition of a kohen drinking wine before going to the mikdash was set specifically to Aaron. The Kroivai Rashi says, what means those are near to me, those are chosen to me. When the Holy One, blessed be, executes judgment upon the righteous, becomes feared and exalted and praised. If such a punishment is meted out to these people, all the more to the wicked. Similarly, it says, Neida alil elikim migdashecha. You are feared, God, from your sanctuary. Do not eat mikdashecha and mikdashecha. Don't read for the sanctuary, but for those who are holy ones. Because holy people that die, especially those that are taken away with kedusha. So they were taken away, in the concept of holiness. And when a person is taken away, as a person who goes on Kiddush Hashem, same thing, a person who's murdered because he's a Yid, and he goes on Kiddush Hashem, that such a person is B'Kedusha. The Eibush sanctifies himself through the Mesiras Nefesh, to those who give them their life up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Verse number 4. Moshe summoned Mishal and Tzafan, the sons of Aaron, uncle Uziel, his cousins. And he told them, go and draw near and carry out the dead people, because the Kehanim are not allowed to get impure. Aaron is not allowed to get impure, and his sons are not allowed to get impure. You have to take them out to be buried. She says, Uziel Achi Amra. Uziel was the brother of Amram. Shenema Bnei Kos, that's brought down. Bnei Kos was Uziel and Amram. Suas Achechem. Like a person says to his fellow, remove the deceased from before the bride, as to not mitigate we're middle of the Chanukah Mishkan. It's in the 8th day of dedication of the temple, and we cannot take away from the joy of the Jewish people that the people are celebrating the story of the dedication of the temple, and you cannot do that. That's why in halacha, for example, today, if somebody passes away, God forbid, family doesn't start the mourning until after Yontif. That's halacha. You can't start the mourning until after Yontif, because you're not allowed to mourn in Yontif. Of that time was a Yontif. There was a Yontif. There's a great celebration, and you're not allowed to shlei la'akiv as a simcha. So chas v'shalom, if somebody passes away in the middle of a chasna, you don't cancel the chasna. Your chasna needs to go on. The simcha needs to continue, and that's why, God forbid, in halacha, if somebody's getting married and the father passes away, the chasna needs to go on. The simcha needs to go on. And so they approached and they carried them out in their tunics, out of the camp, as Moshe Rabbeinu has spoken. Rashi says, the tunics, that teaches us that their garments were not burned, only their souls, meaning that the form of 2 threads of fire entered their nostrils and consumed them from the inside. So basically, they look like they were not burnt, that they were burnt, that that their bodies were consumed. They were consumed from the inside. Verse number 6, and when Moshe Rabbeinu turned around to Aaron and to Eliezer and his summer, Bonav, his sons, Sheikham al Tifro, do not let your hair grow. Ubegeda al Tifreimu, you're not allowed to rend your garments. Because if you do that, you're gonna die. So even though you just lost a son, 2 sons, you lost 2 brothers, Right now, you cannot mourn. I'll call Aida Yiksef, and that will bring only anger on the nation. And the entire Jewish people will cry, bewail this sadness, this burning. Hashashad of Hashem, which God brought a fire on the Jewish people. Now she says, Altis Gadol said, do not grow your hair. From here we learn that a mourner is ordinarily forbidden to have his hair cut. Now we know, that's how we know that a mourner is not allowed to cut his hair. For the first 30 days, for sure, a mourner does not cut his hair. But you're not allowed to cut. You have to cut your hair. That's just so that you not die. For if you imply that if they did these things, they would die. Chas v'shalom. Your brothers, the entire house of Israel. From this we learn that all must participate in the grieving of a Torah scholar who passed away. That if a Torah scholar, like the sons of Aaron, who were great sages, great tzaddikim, when they pass away, the entire Jewish people have to mourn. Verse number 7. Not only you're not allowed to mourn, you're not allowed to leave right now. You're not allowed to leave the Beis Hamikdash. Pentamusu, because Chas v'Shalom, that also will bring the opposite of life. Kishem mishchas Hashem aleichem, because the oil of anointment is upon you. Vayasu, and they all did Dvar Moshe, as Moshe Rabbeinu said. This must have been a tough situation for them. Verse number 8. Then God spoke to Aaron, saying, do not drink wine. Ata uvanecha, you and your sons, Yitzchak, who are with you, when you come to the tent of meeting, you will not die. Chukas elam, this is an everlasting law for your generations. Now she says, Yayin v'seichar means you're allowed to drink wine. You're not allowed to drink wine in an intoxicating manner. When you enter the tent of meeting, for these words I would have understood that this applies only when they enter the sanctuary. From where do we know when they approach the altar that's outside the sanctuary? The answer is entering the tent of meeting is mentioned here, and entering the tent of meeting is mentioned regarding the washing of the feet. So the washing of the feet also was in the courtyard. So just like there, the Torah equates approaching the altar to entering the tent of meeting, so to here it equates the approaching of the altar as the tent of meeting. Verse number 10. Only when you are sober. This is not because usually they came to the Kohen for questions, but this is also not only to the Kohen, as she'll say. When you are sober, is relevant to you to distinguish between actions, render sacrifice. I'm sorry, this is the Kohen also. To offer you the holy, ben achel, ben atame, ben ater, because the Kohen needs to know when he does a sacrifice. As we learned in last two parashas, the concept of kavana, you have to have kavana. So you need to know what sacrifice is holy, what sacrifice is unholy, what's profane, priestly ritual defiled, what's ritually defiled. A Kohen needs to know these halachas. So how can he know halachas these laws if he's going to be tummy, if he's going to be intoxicated? Verse 11. Lahades is b'nei Yisrael. Similarly, only sober person can instruct the Jewish people. As kol hachukim asher dibra Hashem, all the laws that God told to dibra Hashem aleihem, which God spoke to you, biyad Moshe, in the hands of Moshe. So this is talking about any rabbi. A rabbi shouldn't pass on halacha if he's intoxicated. It teaches us that an intoxicated person is forbidden to make halacha decisions. I might think that this is the case, he would be liable for death penalty. Therefore, the Torah states, neither you nor your sons, that they may die, implying that a priest who officiates while intoxicated incurs the death penalty. But a rabbi, a sage, who who renders the decision while intoxicated does not incur a death penalty. So a rabbi should not say halacha when he's intoxicated, but not chas v'shalom. If he does that, he's chayiv misa. But a kohen, if he does the service while he's intoxicated, is chayiv misa. And that completes the chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. I believe we will be starting chapter 41. So as mentioned in the title page of the Tanya, this verse, this whole work is based on the verse, for this thing is very near to you, in your mouth and your heart, that you may do it. This means that observing the Torah and mitzvahs with one's heart, with love and fear of God, is very near, within simple reach. Right? Alter Rebbe devoted the first 25 chapters of the Tanya to explanation of the role of love and fear in the Jewish divine service. He also explains how they may be readily attained. It is the love of God, wrote the Alter Rebbe, that motivates one to fulfill the positive commandment. In order for a Jew to perform them properly and eagerly, he must be imbued with the love of God. That's it. You have to create some aspect of love. Alter Rebbe says it's like the wings of every mitzvah. And a desire to cleave to him. For performing them will enable them to cleave to God. Similarly, the fear of God lies at the root of one's observance of the prohibited mitzvahs. One stands in true fear and awe of God, who refrains from transgression and thereby rebelling against his will. In the last chapter, the Alter Rebbe went on to explain that love and fear are the wings that elevate one's mitzvah, causing them to ascend to the spheres. That's what the Alter Rebbe went through, how everything is connected l'mayla. How every mitzvah I do with kavana, every mitzvah I do with ava and yira, goes to its world, the way it's connected in the spheres alienis, in the upper spheres of the world of Atzilus, Bri, and Tziras. And he explained that conversely, mitzvah filled without spiritual intent, fostered by the love of fear of God, are likened to a body bereft of its soul. In chapter 41, which we're starting today, the Alter Rebbe now goes on to say that fear of God is the beginning and the core of divine service. Kabbalah self, fear of the heaven. Gira, fear of God. This is not only regarding the negative precepts, but also regarding the positive. While it is true that love of God motivates one's observance of positive commandments, nevertheless, the observance of these commandments too must be impelled by some measure of fear overwhelm. There's got to be respect. Derech Eretz. Concept of Derech Eretz to the Eibishter. Reverence. Reverence. It's an important concept that we come to learning in reverence. We come to a mitzvah with reverence. Respect of the mitzvah. Respect of the Torah. You're not here just learning something. You're learning Torah Hashem. You're learning the Torah of God. You need to have reverence. If you don't have reverence, even though you love the subject, something's missing in the subject. You're not going to really get it because there's no reverence to it. You think like reading a novel. This is not a novel. This is Torah Hashem. This is the wisdom of God. We need to have the concept of reverence to it. Respect to the subject. Respect to the mitzvah. Don't make a joke about a mitzvah. Don't make a joke about God. Don't make a joke about Torah. Things, not a joking matter. You need to show some reverence. For Avodah, divine service implies an analogy with the manner of which the Avodah, a servant, serves his master. Service out of fear. That's the content. I'm the servant of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. A servant has respect. He knows his boundaries. He knows who he's serving. And a Yid needs to know that he's serving God. He needs to know that the mitzvah is in the service of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah's learning is in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's in the service of God. Fear of God is therefore the beginning and the mainstay of spiritual service. So even though love is important and Av is important, can't take away from the concept of respect in this aspect. The concept of simple fear. In this concept, to have reverence, I would say, to respect the matter, to respect the subject. So, one must, however, constantly bear in mind what is the beginning of the divine service, the core of Sharsha, and its core and its root. Who, and that is, even though fear is the root of turning away from evil, Ba'ava. And love is va'asei tov in the aspect of doing good, meaning fear of God is what basically urges one to refrain from evil and not to transgress negative precepts, as we explained, while love of God is what basically motivates one to perform good deeds and positive commandments. Afal became, nevertheless, it's not sufficient to be awakened to love alone, say to do good. But you need to have at least before performing a positive commandment. You need to also awaken up first, you arouse the innate fear. Every Jew, just like he has Ava, he has a respect of God. Not to rebel against God. We all want, not only have Avas Hashem, we respect the Eibishter, not to do what the Eibush doesn't want. That was the mistake of the sons of Aaron too. The Eibush, they wanted to come close to God. They missed that respect, what God wanted of them. What they wanted of God, their connection, they understood. But what did God want from them? God wanted from them to stay in this world. And that was, they're missing that concept a little bit. That they had such an ava to the Eibush, they were missing the yira. They forgot to respect a second that they need to respect. That's why one of the things that Rashi says is they didn't ask the question. They were missing that little respect of Moshe Rabbeinu, even. That Moshe Rabbeinu was standing there and they had such an ava to the Eibishter that they forgot to ask the question. And that's why a person also, we can learn from that concept, that we can have such a love of God that we forget the simple halacha, we forget the law, that there's a rule and regulation. So here, Moshe Rabbeinu is standing right there, and Aaron, their father, is standing right there, two greatest leaders of the Jewish nation, and they had truly an ava to the Eibishter, but they just could have asked a question. They could have simply asked a question, if they're doing the right thing. And they would have been told yes or no. And that's the Yira. So they disrespected in a moment Moshe Rabbeinu, as Rashi said, they disrespected their uncle, and they disrespected the Eibishter in a way, because the Eibishter would have told them, as much as you love me, I love you to be here. As much as you have Ava to me, but you need to have Ava to what I want you to do. And I need you to be a Kohen here. And therefore you need to stay here. And you have to give away from your a little love of God to want to stay here. And that's Yira. That's the concept of Leilimre b'melech machamlocha HaKadosh Baruch. And that's the lesson. Shel tehei bisgalis libi. That this fear, this respect, should be manifest itself in his heart, at least in his mind, that he understands who he's standing before. You know, we say in front of a synagogue, it says, know who you're standing in front of. You're not just in shul with your friends. You're not just in shul with somebody. You're in shul in front of God. And you're standing in front of Melech Machadah. Know that. Know a little bit that you're standing in front of God. Al Kapanim. So ultimately, a Jew should be able to create a feeling of fear in his heart through meditating upon God's greatness. If, however, this proves to be beyond his capacity, he should at least arouse an innate fear which lies within the heart. And thus, like an innate love, a person should know that he respects God. We all respect God. We all have a natural respect of God because everybody respects their Creator. We have a natural respect of our parents too, and we have a natural respect of others. This degree of fear is attained in almost so much as it does not require such profound meditation. This innate fear may also be aroused either by such a degree that it actually felt in the heart, or B, if an individual is incapable of invoking palpable fear in his heart, he will at least be able to summon up his innate fear in his mind. So we all need to create, if we cannot have true Yiras Hashem, Yiras Hashem, as the Gemara says, Yiras Hashem milsa zutasi, is fear of God an easy thing to do? It's not such an easy thing, because most of us, we translate in guilt. It's not really fear of God, it's a fear of something else. We have some boogie monster over there. We're afraid of something. We need to have a little bit of fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We need a fear of God. God's not no fear, not a threatening entity. The Eibush doesn't need to be threatening to be able to have respect of him. We respect the Eibush how great he is. And because that's a Gdulas Hashem, that's our meditation, not how God is powerful and can punish us. Our meditation is how God is great. And that should create a concept of respect and a concept of which is a concept of fear. Respect is fear. It's a more delicate concept than the kind of, I don't like to use the word fear, but the concept of respect is a concept of fear. It's an aspect that I respect you, and I don't know my boundaries with the other person. I know my boundaries. I know what it means to give the other person space and to give him his rights and then my obligations towards that respect. And at least I could create that in my mind over here, as Alter Rebbe says, so that I'd be able to apprehend and experience fear God intellectually. We should all have at least to understand the greatness of God, to be able to intellectually realize that we should respect him. That God deserves not only love of God, God deserves that he should be respected. And we need to respect HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we need to understand what respect is. That means in order to arouse within himself this concept in his mind, he should at least contemplate the greatness of the infinite concept of God, in his kingship. That's how we keep on saying HaMelech, and every bracha we say Melech, kingship. Everybody comprehends a Melech. Melech is a Moshe B'Kippur. Melech is a powerful entity. We can understand that government is a powerful entity. So the Gemara says, we should pray for the peace and kingship because it's a powerful entity. So to arouse the former category of fear, that which is palpable felt in the heart, one must engage in one's dat, in profound meditation. Be able to do so, should he contemplate at least, superficially, God's greatness. Ashehi malchusei kol olamim. That the Eibush is malchusei kol olamim. He is the king which extends to all worlds. God is the king of all worlds. Al yenim v'tachtenim. Whether it's the lower worlds or the upper worlds, God is kingship, lordship. Bearing in mind the greater the king's domain, the more awe inspires on all the subjects. The Eibush not only is the king of all the worlds, he fills the worlds. He gives life to the world, animating them and indwelling life force that created beings are experience and comprehend. And at the same time, save of kalam. And let him further consider that he fills and he encompasses the worlds. Meaning, he animates them with a life force that transcends the experience and comprehension of created beings. As it says in the Pasuk, do I not fill the heavens and the earth? Think about it for a second. How the Eibishter fills the whole world. Everything from the upper worlds to the lower worlds, every creature, every entity, every angel, every world, all the spheres of all the worlds. And nevertheless, Maniach al Yonim v'Tachtenim. The Eibishter says himself, he leaves aside. Even though he creates everything, he is focused on one concept. He's focused on you, on us, on me. He leaves aside all creatures, the higher worlds and the creatures of the lower worlds. Neither the higher nor the lower creature represent God's creates ultimate intention. He therefore does not bestow his kingship upon them. Even the higher worlds, even the malachim, even the angels. He's not called their king, their God. He's also upon them. So that he's called their God. He's not called the Elokeinu. He's not called the Melech. He's dafka called Melech over the Jewish nation. And he bestowed his kingship upon the people of Israel in general. God is known as the King of Israel. V'alav bifrat. And especially, particularly on me. Ki chayiv kol adam loyma, as the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, every Jew is obligated to say, Bishvili nivra, the world was created for me. So, a Jew should remind himself that the whole purpose and intent of creation, of God's sovereignty, relates to himself. It's all about you. It's all about me. Specifically, that God becomes a king over him. It's very important. We might say God is the king of the world. The question is, God is king over me. Does God become king over me? That is the question. And that's what the Eibishter wants. When a Jew says, but that's the meaning of the statement, that I have to look at the whole world. The whole world. When I say the whole world, it doesn't mean only this physical world. This physical world, everything in this physical world, everything in the spiritual world was all created that I should I should do the mitzvah of accepting the yoke of heaven. That's the Shema Yisrael. That's the whole Shema Yisrael. I accept upon myself the yoke of heaven. Yira. Hashem Elokeinu. God is our God. Hashem Elokecha. Your God. My God. The realization of God beside his kingship upon each individual in particular touches a responsive core within him. If he understands this, if he thinks about this, and he understands it in his mind, it has to affect. Unless you're just listening, I'm not really comprehending. I'm just listening to something. I'm just reading. If I meditate on this, I comprehend this concept. It has to awaken something within you. He then is apt to demand on himself that he accepts the heavenly yoke. That's when a person comprehends something, then it talks to him. Then it demands upon him something. What does it demand upon me? I accept the yoke of heaven. I start respecting God. And for his part, he accepts the kingship of God upon himself. Liyas melech alav, that the Eibishter becomes a king to him, over him. And he wants to serve him and to do the will of God. whatever the service of a servant does, a servant, as we learned before, that a servant does everything. A son loves his father. A servant services the king. The servant might service the king much closer than the son. He might do things for the king that the son won't do. Because a servant is committed to the king. It's not about himself. It's not about his feelings. It's not about how much he loves, how much he doesn't. But a servant does what he's supposed to do. And therefore, he'll go to the most intimate aspects of the king and he'll serve the king in the most intimate way. This accepting the yoke of divine service is required of all Jews. The Rebbe points out that the Alter Rebbe will go now on to say that the above meditation aimed at awakening an innate awe of one's mind does not suffice. And the individual must realize that God not only bestowed his kingship upon him in general manner, but he also does so in a, so to speak, personal manner. As the Alter Rebbe continues, and he says as follows: "V'hinei Hashem nitzav olav." This is one of the statements that the Lubavitch Rebbe asked that every person, every child even should know this statement of the Alter Rebbe. V'hinei Hashem nitzav olav. And behold, God himself is standing over him. Umaloi kol haaretz kavod. And the whole world is filled with the glory of God. And not only being omnipresent, omnipresent does he see everything, but moreover, mabit olav, he scrutinizes him. The Eibishter is looking at him in particular. Uvaychein kalayis v'leiv. And he searches the reins of his heart, of every Jewish heart, his innermost thoughts. Im avdai karo, if he is serving God in the befitting manner. Wow. That's it. 3 lines. Notice. Hine Hashem nitzav alam leichal aretz kerim mat aretz bech leisi v'leiv im avdai karo. That's an important thing. The Bavitch Rebbe asks every children, 12 psukim, one of these expressions that every Jew, everybody needs to imagine that God is standing over him and he's looking into the depths of him if what he's doing is right. It's important to him, every individual. It's not only important, Klal Yisrael, as a general concept. It's important to him, every single Jew. Every single Jew matters. Not only what he does, but what he feels. He searches the reins of his heart. He looks alayis v'leiv. The Eibush is looking what you're feeling. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you have a good attitude? You have a bad attitude? It's important to me. It's important to me, your attitude. Therefore, you should realize the Eibush is upon you. And be in awe and in fear of that situation. Not, notes the Rebbe, not merely like one who is located in the king's domain. We're not looking at the Eibush, oh, he's far away. It's like you're standing mamish in front of the king 24/7. One must meditate profoundly and at length on this concept. Can't meditate a whole day. You need to meditate on this concept. This concept needs to be solidified in your mind. According to the capacity and the apprehension of his brain and his thought, according to the time available to him, to devote this contemplation, this time being. especially before you daven, before you learn a mitzvah, before you do a mitzvah. Know why you're doing the mitzvah. You're doing it for God. Know that you're learning the Torah. Know that the mitzvah is for God. The mitzvah you're doing is what God wants you to do. Imagine if the Eibishter wants you to do something and he's watching if you're doing the mitzvah and how you're doing the mitzvah. Are you doing the mitzvah with joy? Are you doing the mitzvah with sadness, etc.? Levishas talis, how you putting a talis on? With tefillin, how you putting a tefillin on? We don't put on tefillin, a chalamayid, but in generally, how you put your tefillin on, how you put your talis on. This meditation, we're able to serve God with all. Just realize you're doing God's mitzvah. That completes Tanya for today. Very powerful Tanya. Today is the 17th day of the month. Today is the 17th day of the month, with the Tillim of the day is 83 to chapter 87. If you do those 5 chapters, you do the Chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes on the 17th day of Nisan, the Rebbe writes, whoever expounds on the narrative of the Exodus of Egypt, it says in the Haggadah, whoever this person, this person is praised. The Hebrew word for zeh, this, indicates a state of holiness. As in the phrase, here, this zeh keli, this is our God. So when you say zeh, that's when it's a concept of something that is special. Whoever expounds on the narrative of Egypt, that means we can explain, means then his zeh, his element of holiness, harei zeh meshubach, the zeh becomes enriched. What means zeh? Zeh is when I acknowledge holiness. Zeh keli, this is my God. So that's the meaning of the Haggadah. If you can expound on the concept of Yetzias Mitzrayim, then in holiness, your zeh will be enriched. The more, in essence, you can learn from this, the more you learn Torah, the more your zeh. But when you say this is holiness, this is Yiddishkeit, becomes more enriched. And we connected to the Tanya. The more you contemplate, the more you meditate on godliness, on God, the more you know God, to each person to his capacity, the more he can, his zeh, the more the concept of his zeh, this is God, becomes enriched. My friends, in Mit Shem, we're going to learn tomorrow at 8:15, because the davening is longer, so hopefully it'll be at 8:15. We'll hopefully be ready by 8:15 tomorrow. I wish you all a wonderful Chol Hamoed, a good Moed. We don't say a good Vak, we say a good Moed. And in Mit Shem, we'll all meet together in Mit Shem tomorrow, 8:15. We'll continue to learn.
Is that